Throughout my teenage years, I worked at a Christian camp along the St. John River, and every year I would have to work this 1 week called Boys Adventure Week, where we would take a group of young boys out for their first long camping adventure. I was never very good at the whole camping part and living in the wilderness. I much preferred the cabins that I got to stay in throughout the rest of the summer. Now, throughout this week, we'd start off, it was a 5-day trip, but we'd only be gone from the camp for 2 days when we did a long canoe trip at the end of the week. We'd start the week by training in the woods, and I would always get my group to pay attention as much as possible, not because I was in charge of them, but because I had to learn as much as they did. But when it came time for the canoe trip, I think the other two counselors with their groups were very, very strong in canoeing. This was my first long canoe trip. And it was a 6-hour canoe trip to get to the island that we were supposed to spend 2 nights on. And at one point in the canoe trip, we hit a bunch of whirlpools. And the whirlpools were very, very tough to get through, especially when you're in a canoe with 3 12-year-olds and an inexperienced canoer in the back. So it was taking me forever to get through these whirlpools. The kids in my canoe were freaking out the whole time. They were like, we're going to tip in these whirlpools. And at one point, I just got so fed up. And remember that this is a Christian camp that I just yelled out in the middle of the St. John River, "F***! Sorry, boys." And they just looked at me in shock and just started paddling as hard as they could. And we made it through the whirlpool, made it through the rest of the trip without any more obstacles until we hit the island. And we got to the island, and it was a great night where everyone was tired out, so everyone went to bed early in their tents. But the next morning, we woke up to an absolute rainstorm. And we can't have just 12-year-olds in their tents all day in a rainstorm, so we have to figure out a way to get back to camp. And we are on an island. So we walkie-talkie our boss, and his plan is to drive as close to the island as he could, and that we take one thing of cargo and one camper each back and forth until all the campers are back safely. Now, I am, again, a very inexperienced canoeer, so this was an absolute rainstorm going down, just pouring, and we had to take each kid, and each kid wasn't allowed to paddle. I just had to do it solo, and I somehow was able to get all of the boys back to camp with no issues, besides it being the most badass moment of my life. And then, when I got back in, my boss looked at me and sarcastically said, "So, how was the trip?" And all I said is, "You're going to get some complaints from parents about a counselor saying
All right, that was Durham Laporte. Durham is a local stand-up comedian. You can find him on Instagram at Instadurs. And other than that, if you have a story you want to share with us, contact us at hello@novacamp.ca. Thanks.